Our next speaker is Jason Stamper. Today, in his role as analyst in the Data Platforms and Analytics Group within 451 Research, Jason is part of a team building up the group's Internet of Things coverage. Jason is also responsible for covering operational databases, data grids, and data fabrics, event stream processing, and search-based analytics. Jason has over 20 years of experience in the IT sector, having started his career on the technology news desk at the Daily Express. He was the editor of Computer Business Review magazine from 2001 to 2014, and was also technology editor at the New Statesman. Jason meets regularly with the most influential people in the industry. He's interviewed the CEOs of hundreds of technology companies, including the likes of IBM, Oracle, HP, EMC, SAP, SAS, and Autonomy. Please welcome me and please join me in welcoming Jason. Jason? Thanks. Oh, I'll get the clicker for you here. Thanks very much for the introduction. Okay. So, welcome. Jason Stamper. I'm an analyst in the data platform and analytics space at 451 Research. So, I flew in Saturday night because I thought, I don't want to come in yesterday or this morning and make sure in case it was delayed or something, I'd miss this important summit. So I thought, what am I going to do? I've got Sunday free to myself. What am I going to do in San Francisco? So it's like there's amazing art galleries, theaters, museums. I kind of got all of that in London. So I thought, what can I do? Get California for one day. So I used to ride a big motorbike. So I thought, I haven't done it in 20 years, so I'll rent a motorbike. So I went on Google and I ordered myself a 250cc, which is quite a small little motorbike with Eagle Rider San Francisco. Of course, Google, using in-memory technologies, returned the results of my query in a fraction of a second, despite the latency going to Ireland or whatever tax haven they're using so they don't pay corporation tax in the UK. I didn't say that. So anyway, a few days later, without even I'd sort of forgotten about all of this, I get a phone call. And, unrecognized number, so I don't know who this is, so answer the phone. The guy goes, "You wanted a chopper?" I said, what do you mean? In the UK, a chopper's a helicopter, right? So, yeah, you ordered a chopper. So, no, I don't need a helicopter. Said, this is Chad from Eagle Riders. You ordered a chopper. We haven't got the one you wanted. Okay, you got something similar? Yeah, we got an equivalent motorbike. So I said, I haven't ridden for a long time. Last bike I had was a 125cc Vespa. A little scooter, automatic, right? So nothing too big and too heavy, and also I'm not the biggest guy in the world, and if I drop it, I need to be able to pick it up again kind of thing, right? So anyway, so I turn up yesterday, Sunday morning. Was that yesterday? Yeah. So turn up yesterday morning, Eagle Riders, 488 8th Street, very good company if you're interested in renting a motorbike. He goes, yeah, here's your chopper, Jason. Go out, it's a 1.6 litre Indian. It weighs 300 kilograms. Anyway, I'm here in one piece, so that's the important thing. So anyway, I said to him, look, if you're going to phone people in the UK, don't say, do you want a chopper, right? Just, would you like a motorbike? That's better. Anyway, I'm Jason Stamper. This is the talk I'm going to give you about in-memory computing moving towards the Internet of Things. I'm not sure which way I pressed to go on this. I think it's next. Yeah. So very briefly introducing my company. Given the likes of Google and so on, you can find us easily enough online. Many of you won't have heard of us. That's partly because if you're in America, where our headquarters is in New York, they call it 451 Research, and in England we call it 451 Research. So, straight away a brand issue there that we don't actually know what we call ourselves. It was founded by a group of Brits who had read a book by Ray Bradbury, which was all about the temperature at which books burn. And they had this idea to start a new analyst firm, which was a bit different and challenged the norms and so on. So we were founded in 2000, but even though many of you won't have heard of us, we're actually now the 4th largest analyst firm worldwide. We've got over 100 analysts, well over 210 employees altogether, and we've got offices. I'm based in London. We've also got San Francisco, New York, a small office in Asia Pac, and so on. And a lot of what we do is people like me go out and interview people like Abe and try and understand what they're saying, what their messaging is, what the technology is doing. But we also speak to many of the other of you in the audience, which are end users of IT, to try and understand where the challenges are and try and get that messaging lined up and understand what's actually going on in the technology industry, not just what the vendors are saying, but equally not just what the end users are complaining about. And with a mixture of that and also very strong ties into the venture capital community and investors, especially in New York, we have quite a good understanding of where younger companies are coming in, how the game's changing, and all those sorts of things. And we also have made a number of acquisitions over the year. We bought a company called Yankee Group, which does mobile analytics. So we now do analysis of data center technologies all the way through to mobile and more. And we also do lots of end user interviews every month, over 15,000 professionals that we interview, so that we've got some hard, fast data about plans and what companies are doing en masse, as it were. So the first thing I'd say is, we've heard from Abe how we'll all be out of a job in the next few years because everything's going to be automated and so on. But there is genuinely a perfect storm occurring in IT, in my opinion. And that's because the business users and end users and customers of companies are not getting the kind of responsiveness that they were really hoping for from their technology providers and their IT department internally. And the reason for that is because we've all suddenly, without hardly realizing it, become CIOs in our own right. And I've got a couple of kids. I'm a CIO of my household. I deployed my network, which was a wireless network. I installed my laptops or my tablets. So I've done hardware, I've done networking. I'm a CIO in the terms of I manage how long the kids are allowed to play on the tablet on a Sunday morning, which is 3 or 4 hours, depending on how late I wake up. So we're all in our own right CIOs, and we expect the IT department to be as good at doing this stuff as we are at home. Because if I want a terabyte drive, I go into PC World or Currys or whatever it's called here, Office Depot or something, and I buy a terabyte drive for $20, or, and you go to the IT department and say, oh, I need a terabyte of data, and they go, oh, that's millions, And so, well, why is there this disconnect between what I can do at home? I can set up my network and do my hardware and my storage, and I've got a backup to Apple Cloud or wherever, and this is all done, and it's simple. It's like, why is the IT department taking weeks and months to do this stuff for me and give me the responsiveness that I expect? Now, if you don't believe me that there's a perfect storm in the industry, that CIOs and IT departments internally have a real challenge, here's a statistic. So Abe had one, 98%. I've got a statistic of my own, about 98%. So we asked, when I was on the magazine that I used to work for, we asked 200 UK-based CIOs, do you believe there's a gap between what the business wants and what you can deliver? And I thought it would be quite high, and I thought there'd be a gap. I didn't think nearly everybody would say that there's a significant gap between what the business expects and what IT is able to deliver. And not only that, the 2% the 2% missing from the 98%, if you see what I mean, they weren't saying that there isn't a gap. They said NA, no answer, like they didn't know. So pretty much everybody in the UK this is, but I think it applies around the world, pretty much everybody who's a CIO was saying, we're not giving the business what they want. We can't give them what they want. We don't have the performance, the speed, the flexibility, and it's not just in terms of real-time, low latency, transactional, algo trading, all this sort of stuff. It's also in that development cycle. How long does it take for the IT department to deliver something which the business wants? So not just that real-time, I've asked a question, here's my answer from Google kind of thing, but also, we're thinking of launching a new product. You're the IT department, can you help us to launch this new product? How long is that going to take? And the IT department does that thing that people in garages do when you take your car in. They go, how many terabytes? Oh, that's going to cost. It's going to be millions, and it's going to be 6 months, and blah blah blah. And we're going to have to uninstall this and deinstall that and network this, and we're going to have to put together a Tiger team. We're going to have to blue sky think it. We're going to have to do all this stuff, And it just goes on and on and on. So basically, trust is broken, and that level of trust between the IT industry, between the people delivering IT to businesses and what the business is expecting, the end users are expecting, is absolutely broken at the moment, and a lot of work needs to go on as to try and fix that. So what does the business want? I mean, most of you could go, yeah, it's kind of obvious. They want, they want it to be faster. They want speed. They want results. So, but I've used this illustration because I think it neatly sums up, and it's my opinion, you're welcome to your own, neatly sums up some of what the business needs and wants from the technology industry. Now, I don't know if many of you are petrol heads. Anyone recognize the black and orange one? A bit like my watch? Exactly. Bugatti Veyron, that is. At one time, the world's fastest production road car. I think it's been overtaken by something else. The person who knew it was a Bugatti will probably know what's the fastest these days. Is it a Zonda or something? Anyway, so they want speed. And like I say, I don't just mean in terms of like low latency, oh, we've asked a question, we've got the answer. They also want that development cycle to be compressed. We want a new project done, we need to work on it. How long is it going to take? Are you going to spend 6 months planning it and so on? Or can we actually get there as fast as we possibly can? The next picture, going clockwise then, is a heads-up display. They want information, not just data. Data's great, but they want information, and that means it's digestible by the business users. It's something that the business people can actually get their heads around. Many of us could show a business user, right, this is our data. Here's like 60 terabytes of data. Take a look. And the business people go, well, but where's, I don't understand. How many pairs of shoes did I sell in Bradford? Is this shoes, or is this boxes, or is this cartons? So they want information, not just data. Going clockwise then, a Land Rover Defender, I think that is. Not the most aerodynamic car in the world. 0 to 60 in about 15 seconds. However, secure, reliable. It's a Defender. It's called a Defender. They want governance and security, and they want your data to be kept secure. Whether it's on cloud or on premise, you need your information to be kept safe. Continuing clockwise then, I bet even the person who knew it was a Bugatti doesn't know what that one on the bottom right is, do they? No. See, got you. That is a Skoda Rapid. 1.2 litre. It was my first ever car when I was a student. It was known as the Czechoslovakian 911 because the engine was in the boot, but the radiator was in the front. 0 to 60, 18 seconds, 1.2 litre, 44 horsepower. It broke down every single time I drove it. So they do not want a Skoda Rapid, even though it's cheap. Going clockwise then, what's that one? Anybody know? Anybody a fan of Top Gear? No? Yes? What is it? I mean, you're a fan of Top Gear, but you don't know what the car is. Okay. So that is a Mitsubishi Lacetti. And that is on Top Gear, which is the car program. That's what they put the star in a reasonably priced car in. And the reason I put that in is because what the business wants is kind of like, we want you to be efficient, fast, powerful, secure, safe, but we don't want to blow the budget. We also need it to be economical. So this is a nifty way, if you like, of showing you some of the pressures that the IT organization is finding themselves in, and also that companies are finding themselves in terms of customers. Customers want these things as well. They want your business to be efficient, fast, but also secure. Keep my data secure and safe. Don't lose it like Sony did. I didn't say that either. So why am I here, and what's this got to do with in-memory computing and so on? Well, Abe had a very similar graphic. You'd almost think he'd seen my slides before he did his. However, he's absolutely right in that the number of users and connections is obviously going through the roof, especially in industries like e-commerce, gaming, multiplayer gaming, gambling, and so on. The number of users, a company can start up and suddenly have tens of thousands of customers in a day or so. The responsiveness challenge is a real issue, and I've talked about the importance of a Bugatti Veyron, the ability to have real speed if you're going to be able to answer questions. And analyst companies, not just my own, have talked about this idea of the value of data. It erodes over time. So if you capture some data about an end-user engagement or a transaction, it's got an amount of value, let's say X. Over a period of time, being able to act on that data, the value declines over a period of time because it's no longer as valuable. If I'm in real time able to say, for example, somebody logs in to compare the meerkat.com or one of these comparison websites and is looking up insurance, and they've run a particular question. For example, how much is it to insure a Skoda 1.2-litre Rapid in 1988 as a 17-year-old driver who's just passed his test? A lot of money, I can assure you. If you're asking a question like that, and the comparison websites are returning a number of results, those insurance companies are starting to, in real time, adjust their quotes based on what their rivals are doing. Now, if you're able to then email that person, flag up that person a special offer, a discount, did you know if you go with the Skoda Rapid insurance with my company, we'll also throw in breakdown cover, that would be really valuable to me, right? So if you're able to do that then and there, within milliseconds or seconds, you may well win that deal, and that's a lot of money. If you're able to do it in a week's time, that person's already got their insurance, and they've gone and they've left, and they're not even buying a Skoda Rapid anymore. They've upgraded to the 1.3-litre, So the value of that data is declining over a period of time, and that's why responsiveness and the Bugatti Veyron that a gentleman recognized is very important. If you don't have that speed, you really don't have the value when you need it. And then, of course, the number of transactions is going up as well. I'll talk a little bit about the Internet of Things, but there was a time when a company's IT department would be required to, for example, sell somebody an airline ticket. So somebody phoned up a travel agent and they bought the airline ticket. The airline had to make sure they had a seat, and they printed a boarding pass, and it took about 3 or 4 steps. Now, somebody goes on a comparison website, goes to a number of different websites, looks through all of the different prices, might visit 15, 20 different websites before they decide which one they're interested in, then chooses to buy it, purchase it online, enters their credit card details. The transaction becomes longer and longer, and the number of elements that you're able to capture and start to understand, well, hang on, if we do some A/B testing here, if we slightly remodel our website, we get more people to buy seats, that's going to make a massive difference in the future. So the transactions have changed in the sense that they're longer running, they're more involved, and we can capture more data about what people are doing. So when I used to be a journalist, I used to write about business intelligence, and in the 90s there was a huge hoo-ha about artificial intelligence, and it was all very exciting, and it was going to be the next thing, like Abe says, nobody will have a job anymore. It'll all be robotics, and we won't need to think about things because computers will run the world. And the big example that was always rolled out was one in the US at Walmart. And when people were selling you the idea of business intelligence and artificial intelligence, they would say, look, this stuff's really, really clever. You run this stuff over your data and you find these fantastic, interesting nuggets, a needle in a haystack, Say, all right, well, give me some hard, fast examples of just running this stuff over your data and finding something really interesting. So Walmart in the US, they did it. They can definitely do it, and that proves our case. So, all right, what did Walmart do? I said, well, Walmart ran AI over their data, and they discovered that on a Friday evening, some men who go and buy nappies also buy beer. This is a genuine thing, you can look it up, right? So they said, so what Walmart did, having run artificial intelligence over all this stuff, they went like, some men buy nappies and beer. And they went, right, what can we do? Put our heads together, and they went, put the beer next to the nappies. So Walmart, so they moved some of the beer, and they put, so you had nappy, so you had, milk and follow-on milk and all that sort of stuff. It's best to breastfeed, by the way. Had all that stuff. Then they had the nappies, and then they had the beer. And apparently, they sold more beer than they had before. Now, whether that's causation or it's just you get a load of really tired men with young children at home, and you put beer next to the nappies, you go, yeah, I'll have some of that. Who knows? And anyway, when I was a journalist, I phoned Walmart, I spoke to the CIO, I spoke to everybody. I said, who came up with, where's this nappies and beer thing? I was like, never heard, nothing to do with us. And you trace it all the way back, and it doesn't exist. It didn't happen. So artificial intelligence, all very well in its own right, but you've got to know what question you're asking. And I still think there's no kind of replacement for the human brain. That's why we still need data scientists, and we still need experts. And we'll still have jobs, I'm afraid, Abe, I believe. Or I hope I will anyway. My brother's a year older than me. He's the successful one. He works for a financial company in Hong Kong. And he was saying the other, he came over for, there was a FA Cup final in the UK. and he supports Crystal Palace, which is a small team that made it through to the final. So he flew all the way from Hong Kong, 500 quid just to go to the football match. That was just a ticket, 1,000 odd quid to fly back. And he was saying, I was saying, how are things going? He said, yeah, I'm not sure about, just not very happy at the moment. What's the problem? He said, I just can't decide whether to retire or not. I was like, and this is a problem? In what way is this a problem, Anyhow, I digress. So I think we'll still have jobs my brother might not do. 451 Research, we kind of do know about this stuff, I think. There's 4 of us that just write about analytics and data platforms. So I'm a niche within a niche. When I was a journalist, I wrote about hardware, software, networking, middleware, CIO issues, your cat, everything. Now I just write about operational databases and in-memory grids. I don't even do analytic databases. Teradata, get out of here. I'm not even covering it. We have someone else who does those. We have someone else who just does the front end, the Tableau and the visualization and all that kind of stuff. So we do have a lot of people dedicated to spending all of their time speaking to people like yourselves and experts like Abe and people in the venture capital community, investors, buyers of technology, and users of technology to really understand what's going on in this diagram. Now, I'm not going to go through all of it, but I've put at the top, simple question mark, because there's a huge amount of technologies that companies are having to employ in order to try and get to that Bugatti Veyron, but with the star and a reasonably priced car combination that I talked about. And it gets incredibly complicated. Again, so you've got stream processing, in-memory processing, NoSQL databases, object databases, machine learning, it goes on. But the whole point is the gray circle around the curve is what's the business case for this? What are we actually trying to do? Or are we doing it for its own sake? A lot of companies that I've spoken to have said, somebody came to me one day, a CIO, said, what are we doing with Hadoop? I said, oh, yeah, we haven't got a Hadoop strategy. We need to, what's our Hadoop strategy? Well, Hadoop isn't a strategy, it's a technology platform, So it's like, yeah, right, so let's get some Hadoop, and we'll put the data in there. So they put their data in Hadoop, because it's cheap. And the phrase everyone likes to use is it's cheap like puppies, it's kind of cheap up front, but it costs you a lot of money to look after. So it's like, so we've got a Hadoop strategy now. It's like, great, yeah, we can relax now. We can all go for a pint. It's like, yeah. But then the business goes, how many pairs of shoes did we sell in Bradford last week? And they go, well, I don't know, it's in Hadoop. Like, yeah, but can't we get it out? Well, not really, no. It's like, it's schemaless. And they're like, what do you mean it's schemaless? So I gave you my data, you've put it in Hadoop, now you're telling me I can't get it? It's like, yeah, well, you didn't say you wanted it back. I mean, like, not in any kind of readable format. And, I think it was a brilliant marketing ploy. I don't know who came up with it. But, they call it schema on read. I mean, that's just genius. So it's like basically saying, we've given you all this data, now you can't get it back. But that's schema on read, and that's a feature. That's a benefit. So the business, I told you, trust is broken. 98% don't think they can deliver what they want. They're kind of going like, schema on read. It's all in Hadoop. Yeah, it's all safe. It's in a data lake, They go, so you've put our data in a lake. Yeah, well, kind of metaphorically, we've put our data in a lake. And it's all still there. It's all really secure and safe and all that. But just don't ask us to get it out, because that's going to cost you a lot of money. And of course, all the analytic database companies, which I'm not meant to know about, because I only do operational databases and in-memory grids and fabrics, they're all kind of going, well, we have to have a Hadoop story here, because a lot of companies have put stuff in Hadoop. So they go, well, yeah, we can't be obsolete here. We need to understand that Hadoop's part of our ecosystem. So Teradata and other analytics companies, Microsoft, with its poly-based technology, is going to be part of Microsoft SQL Server 2016, which is coming out in June. Oracle, with its adapter technology and its in-memory technology and so on. All of these companies, they're kind of going, well, we have to have a Hadoop story. IBM has a Hadoop appliance, And so we have to understand that there's some data in Hadoop, and we need to be able to access that. So then the company goes, well, we put all our stuff in Hadoop, but because it's really cheap. It's really cheap to put it in Hadoop. And they go, no, hang on, now we want to get it out. We need to analyze it and understand it. They go, oh, well, Teradata can help us do that. Oh, how much is that? Oh, we didn't think about that when we put it in Hadoop. So there needs to be this integration, but of course there's a challenge as to how you start to do the efficiencies that you need with all of this that's going on. And I think Abe talked about HTAP, which I think Gartner coined, which is hybrid transactional analytical processing. We call it multimodal. kind of the same thing. It's this idea that you're able to do your transactions and your analytics on the same platform. Saves you a certain amount of complexity as having two completely separate databases. It's why some people thought that Teradata, for example, in the analytics space, would be going nowhere because everyone's just doing it on the transactions instead of having to have a separate data warehouse. As it turns out, Teradata is continuing to grow because everybody's realized that they still need that expertise to understand that data and get it out efficiently and analyze it. So, we're an analyst firm, so we like to have charts that look like this. And it's basically saying that, the market as a whole is absolutely growing. So I mentioned that there are 4 of us in data platforms and analytics at 451 Research. And between us, we cover 284 companies. Now, I think it's really unfair because, as I mentioned, I cover operational databases, and they account for something like 95% of the total market in terms of revenue. So I have all the hard work, while Krishna, for example, who covers people like Tableau, they're like tiny. Anyway, so that's how we break it up. Loads of companies that we analyze. There's lots of growth. You've all seen charts like this before, and you know that data's growing and exploding, and Abe's explained that already. We also, of course, being an analyst firm, we like to break things into little silos and so on. So we categorize the market into different areas. And Abe has sort of, tried to explain why in-memory data grids and in-memory caches are so important. And we agree this is based on our forecast market monitors, which we put together looking at vendor revenue estimates, as well as those end-user surveys that I talked about. And, the market as a whole, we think, is growing about 12% between 2015 and 2020. There are very different areas in terms of the speed of growth of those different categories. And as you can see, distributed data grids and caches are one of the fastest growing after companies that are doing things with Hadoop. And a lot of what's going on in Hadoop is trial and error at the moment, to be fair, and lots of development work, not so much in production that we're seeing in the data grid and cache area. But however, so those two, as you can see, growing very fast. So you've come to the right conference, I guess. Had you been at the Analytic Databases conference, I might not have put this slide up. So Internet of Things, you've all heard about it. It was invented by a Brit. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, but it was apparently attributed to Kevin Ashton, who was at MIT at the time, but he was born in Britain, so like the internet, we invented it. And I suppose the point to make here is that there's a huge amount of hype around IoT. If you look at this is actual survey, it's called Voice of the Enterprise. We acquired this company, the acronym is VOTE. This is where we survey 15 or so thousand people a month, and this is the results that we had in our most recent one. We're just about to do the next one. So as you can see, it's relatively limited adoption so far. And when you look at the kind of trajectory of IoT, we're very much at the moment in kind of a silo phase. If you like, we're seeing sort of networks of things being put together. My Fitbit doesn't necessarily talk to my Volvo car's communication systems. My Garmin watch doesn't necessarily talk to my Nike shoes and so on. We've got little different networks and not a huge amount of compatibility. Some of that's improving as the standards emerge. MQT is a big one that seems to be getting some traction now finally at IBM and elsewhere. And so, but we as a research company, we're quite positive about IoT. We think it will make a lot of difference. We don't do one of these things. I've seen some research where they go, this is going to be worth $17 trillion by 2040. You're kind of like, where did that come from? But we do think for most businesses it will have a huge impact, and there's lots of reasons to be interested in it. Now, why, when you look at IoT, I talked to, if we go back to one of my first slides, which was a Bugatti Veyron and a Skoda Rapid, worth remembering if you're in the market for a classic car, which has its engine in the boot. When I talked about that, you remember the pressures that the business were facing were all about speed, performance, flexibility, but also having a genuine economic reason, the star in a reasonably priced car. So I've put up here 3 examples. You've all heard about Internet of Things examples, and the one that always gets trotted out, like nappies and beer, is, smart thermostats in your home. And that's great, but, realistically, what does a smart thermostat in your home do for you? Well, what it does for the utility company is it means they don't have to send someone to measure your gas and electricity readings. What it does for you is it enables you to see on your phone, for example, whether your heating's on, or to turn your heating off, or to turn your heating down. Well, that's what a thermostat does on the wall that we've always had. So there's not, to my mind at least, there's not a huge benefit in having a smart thermostat. If, there's this kind of, they kind of go, well, yeah, but before you get home, you can warm the house up. It's like, yeah, well, you could just turn the heating on when you get home, It's like hours, unless you have a particularly drafty house. So it's like, wait, is there a real benefit in having a smart thermostat? Certainly, people are paying for these, like £200-300. That's about, $600 going rates. To have one installed in their house, so they can see how warm their house is. And it's like, but if you're at home, you know how warm it is because you can kind of put your hand on the radiator and go, the radiator's on, So here are some examples which I think demonstrate to some extent that kind of sense of, well, where's the real value in some of these things? And what, are we doing them for the right reasons? As a business, do we need some of these IoT things? So, and I've gone from really cool to really plainly, and I was nearly going to swear then, glad I didn't, frankly ludicrous ideas. So on the far left, I've called that a football because if you're going to call it soccer, I'm going to call it a football. That, of course, is a deliberate mistake. That's a basketball, and that's made by Wilson, and that is an NBA, I think that's the right word, official basketball. You can use it in competition matches, and it has a sensor in it, which you can then analyze exactly how many times it was bounced, how high, its trajectory, all those sorts of things. It's being used as a way of training people to improve their shots, to improve the way they go for their three-pointers. See, I did used to play basketball, so I know some of the terms. Do they get a swish? All that sort of stuff. I think that's quite cool. And people sort of say, oh, yeah, but what happens when the battery runs out? Well, when the battery runs out, it's just a basketball. So you haven't wasted your money. It's still a basketball. And even when the batteries run out, it's still competition standard. You can still use it. So, I think that's pretty cool. And it's a good example of how the Internet of Things, because that's a smart device. You could put a little sensor in a ball that you give to your kids and see how much exercise they're doing. Put the tablet down and show me how many times you can kick the ball against the wall. It's got some definitely interesting use cases that genuinely are worth thinking about. Volvo Connected Cars is a different example. I put that up there because that's a business. They realized that they had sensor data in the cars. So when it detected a skid, for example, the ABS was deployed, it would send that information to the Swedish Road Authority. The Swedish Road Authority would send that information to the gritters, and they would come and de-ice that particular stretch of road. Good, healthy, safe idea, good for the community, good for Volvo. It wasn't networked up with Ford and everybody else, because this is the network of things, not the Internet of Things. But it's going on that path, you can see, and it helped people out. But Volvo realized when they offered this to people as an optional extra, nobody wanted it. They were like, yeah, but if I crash, it's, who knows? Yeah. Doesn't matter. But if they said, okay, using the same technology, we can turn your heater on when you're at home before you come out with your cup of coffee so that it's defrosted and nice and warm in the morning, 84% of people bought the technology. So it's like finding that business case. What do people really want from this stuff, and where's it going to work for you? And then the last one, which I call ludicrous. I've got nothing against Samsung. They've got some great technology. I've got really good television from them. All fantastic. However, the Internet of Things fridge freezer, really? So there's 4 cameras in it. It costs £4,500 at John Lewis in the UK. And what does it do? Yeah, it shows you the weather on the front. Because like going to the window and looking out is too much for some people. And if you're at the supermarket, you go like, do we need some milk, darling? Oh, I can't remember. Do we need some milk? I'll look on my phone. I can see a picture inside my fridge. This is worth £4,500. I know. When we go to the supermarket, let's look in the fridge before we go. It'll save us £4,500, right? And anyway, how many cameras do we need in our homes? Abe said that there's 1.1 camera for every person in the UK, in the world. If we add another 4 just in our fridge, And by the way, they don't have any cameras in the freezer because they break, because they freeze. So you go like, do we need any frozen chips and fish fingers for the boys? Oh, look at I can only see the fridge. So you go like, right, we're going to the supermarket. I'm going to look in the freezer, see if we need any fish fingers. Don't bother looking in the fridge because I've got a camera in there. Anyway, I digress. So some of this IoT stuff is, frankly, I think ludicrous. Nappies and beers. You didn't need to be an expert to say, if some men are coming in buying nappies and you put some beers there, they might buy some. It's like, if you put some sweets at the tills, when the kids are going through with their parents, they go, Mummy, can I have some sweets? You don't need artificial intelligence to do that, right? It's kind of common sense. If you know what questions to ask, you can work a lot of this out for yourselves. I'm just about over time, so I've written a big report last year, which you can sign up for a trial on our website, which is all about how the IoT is impacted by the Internet of Things. Sorry, IoT affects all of these 10 different areas like data grids, in-memory databases, in-memory fabrics, and so on. And I'm out of time, so thanks ever so much for your attention. And feel free to follow me on Twitter, etc. Thanks.